Nice to see you all and welcome. So, as Rianne mentioned, I'm Hannah Bush-Bailey, and I work as the film and production executive across our BFI Doc Society Fund. For those of you that kind of don't know us, Doc Society is a global organisation that supports non-fiction filmmakers. We do this through funding, labs, impact work, and field building. Since 2018, we've been the BFI's delegate partner for their National Documentary Fund. So through that, we fund short and feature-length creative non-fiction docs for the cinema. So I have a kind of presentation where I will talk you through our Made of Truth short film fund. And then I think we're just going to open it up for questions. So since 2018, as I've said, we've been running the National Documentary Fund. Over that time, we funded 75 short docs. Towards the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a bit of a kind of snapshot of some recent shorts that we funded to hopefully give you a kind of idea of the types of different work that we funded. We can go to the next slide. The applications are due to open very soon, so we're slightly behind the Fiction Fund on Network, but we'll be opening in April. That's going to be the first week of April. And the applications are going to be open for 4 weeks. We have quite here, we've kind of detailed some of the our review process and the different stages to give you an idea. We have quite a rigorous review process that includes external reviewers, internal reviewers, peer reviewers, and also a fund committee with our BFI colleagues. So the applications are looking to close in May, but for those that are successful, you're likely not going to hear that until kind of interviews or award offers July, August. I think it's also worth noting that upon being awarded, there's an onboarding and contracting process. And so that can also take a couple of months. So really, you're looking at money in your pocket, as it were, for kind of end of September, October time. You then have a year to complete the films. So delivery September 2026, roughly. We can head to the next slide. So the who is the fund for, really? It's for new and emerging talent, which is similar to, the BFI Network's Fiction Fund. Unlike the BFI Network, which have regional hubs, we cover the whole of the UK, which includes Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And I guess, what do we mean by new and emerging? We mean somebody who's yet to make a kind of distributed feature film. So it may be that this is your first short, it may be that this is your kind of last short before you're moving on, or it may be that you're coming from another kind of art form and moving into that documentary space. It's an annual call, so we open once a year, tends to be around springtime each year, but the months do change and vary. We will fund up to 15 short films, and we can give awards of up to 25,000. Everybody asks us for the top amount. Usually we may come in as slightly lower than that, but do ask for what you need. Somebody asked, I saw in the questions, how long can they be? So films can be between 5 and 40 minutes in length. I would say the sweet spot is under 25. And that's really thinking about kind of festival and distribution opportunities once the film is finished. But we can make projects up to 40 minutes in length. And we can come in at kind of different stages of production, which again is a departure from the Fiction Fund. I would say the majority that we come in at are in development, and leading into kind of that pre-production stage, but we do every year often fund films that may be further down the line. So they may have shot a bunch of footage, but for example, it's an observational doc. They're kind of following events, but there's still more to shoot. For some, they may have shot everything, but they're getting into an edit and a post. It's unusual for us to come in to just cover final post. We usually do want to be, I think, as most funders do, involved in that kind of editorial stage throughout the edit as well. I'll speak to this a little bit more later as well, but each film, once awarded, comes with kind of one-to-one exec support. So I exec across a huge slate of our shorts. Our head of fund, Luke Moody, will also exec across a handful of the shorts. So throughout the process, you have that kind of one-to-one exec support, which includes editorial meetings throughout production. It also includes obviously giving notes on an edit, and then supporting and kind of advising around festivals and distribution. That needs to be led by the film team, but we're there to kind of advise across that. And then a key piece of information is you don't need a producer to apply, which is again different to the Network Fiction Fund. We appreciate that it can be a barrier to entry. And therefore, although we greatly encourage people to find those collaborators and to apply as a team, you can apply as directors only. If you are successful, we would then help in kind of matching you up with a separate lead producer on the project. We can head to the next slide. Thank you. So a bit more about what we support on the fund. As I've said, new and emerging talent from all parts of the UK. We really do want to support kind of the most exciting talent throughout the UK, working in this space or moving to this space from other art forms. It's really important that the slate reflects regional talent and that our filmmakers are kind of UK wide. The director has to be based in the UK and also not in full-time education. And along with all other BFI projects, the film must pass the cultural test and also complete the diversity standards as part of their application. We can't tell you whether you're going to pass the cultural test. The BFI have a whole certification unit who work across that. Generally, if you're shooting here in the UK, you don't need to worry about it. If, however, you might be shooting abroad, that's something to consider, and you can do a kind of test application, as it were, for the cultural test. It's a points-based system to see if you pass. And again, crucially, we don't have to be the only funder in the film. So you can also raise other money. I would say that you often we are, you know, the only funder in the film. Sometimes they have pulled projects have pulled money from other places. Uh, if you have a really, really large budget and you've raised the majority of that, and you're asking us for kind of the tiny last bit, we may question if you really need our support on that. But generally, we can work with lots of other different funders. Over to the next slide, please. Thank you. So really, we're looking for expansive director-led projects. We're looking for films that have a very strong vision, films and filmmakers with something to say. You know, as well as funding the film, we're also funding you as filmmakers, and it's as much about you as it is about the film. We want them to be cinematic. You know, for it's a film fund. In shorts, that means kind of festival play, usually. And I guess what I mean by that is we're not kind of talking about necessarily the camera you're shooting on, but the way in which you tell the story that leads to that kind of big screen experience. We want stories that are bold, that take risk, and that are original. We're really interested by films that are kind of push the documentary form. And really, we're looking for new stories, or we're looking for new perspectives on stories that tell us about the world and the Britain that we're living in today. And we want our films also to have that kind of international scope and reach. We're looking, I think, I'll speak to this a little bit later as well in the application, but we're, I guess, looking for the whys, like why this film, why now, why tell this film now, and why are you the right person to tell it. We can head over to the next slide. So as you'll see, we fund a whole range of different types of documentaries and different forms. The brief is intentionally broad, and we really fund everything from kind of personal through to observational. We have funded everything from a 5-minute animation to a 40-minute journalistic piece. We're also open to VR and immersive projects that are kind of firmly rooted in docs. Really interested by those. They may kind of lean more experimental. It may be that the film is looking at a hybrid approach or an animation. It may be more of an observational film. We do really fund across the kind of spectrum. We can head to the next slide. Thank you. So, preparing an application. So we have, as I said, we're going to open in just over a month now. We have previews on our website, which include the application form, so you can download that, see the questions that we're asking. You can also work on that offline. We have the guidelines. They're really boring, but they are important, and they often answer lots of questions that people have. So very worth reading. We've got an FAQs. We've also got a budget template, which we ask you to use. It kind of covers off what we expect to see in a budget. And we have the diversity standards template, which, as I mentioned before, you need to include as part of your application and upload that. To speak a little bit on that, I think they can be quite daunting, particularly when you're early on in a project and when you're working on a short doc. They are really suited to fiction films. Their last stuff about, the 25 members of your crew, which documentary often don't have. But really, what we're looking for in that, particularly in the early stages, is intent. What are your intentions? We don't expect you to have all of the answers at that stage. But also it's really helpful to be specific and as detailed as you can. So if you're looking to hire underrepresented crew, for example, it's helpful to understand where you might be going to find that crew. Are there particular networks that you would be looking to reach out to, for example? So again, it's about what you do know at this stage and your intentions going forward. Of course, it's worth talking about our access support. So on our website, you'll also find a BSL guide, which you can watch, which of our guidelines. There's an easy read guidelines, and there's also an audio version. We work with Tape Community Music and Film, which can offer support to make your application if you have access requirements. So they can help you draft and prep your application as well. We ask the usual stuff you'll see on our application form. We're looking for what's your story summary, what's your topic, what's your artistic approach. We're looking for bios of key crew that you might have. Again, you may not have everybody confirmed, but it's really helpful to have an understanding of, for example, DOPs that you might be aiming to bring onto the project, or editors. We ask for links to previous work. It's really helpful if you can indicate, if it's quite a long piece of work, if you can indicate a section in which you feel really highlights an artistic approach or a kind of storytelling element that you'd like to highlight. It may be, again, that you're coming from a kind of different form and this is your first doc. So speaking about what elements you feel might be helpful to your current application. Visual materials are really key. That may be that you have a very detailed treatment. It may be that you have a kind of visual mood board. it may even be that you've kind of got a teaser or some footage that you'd like to show and share with us, which is obviously very helpful. We would, if you're coming to us and you've shot a whole bunch of stuff, we would expect to see some of that in the application. And I would say get creative with your visual materials. Um, we've had filmmakers before who have kind of recorded an audio interview with their key contributor, and then it was a quite a structured doc, so they had a very clear indication of the types of visuals that they wanted to create, and they stole lots of images from the internet to create a kind of teaser, which helped enable us and show their vision for the project. And I always thought that was quite a resourceful way to showcase the work without having a lot. Um, and I think one of the trip ups maybe that we see on applications is people having a really, really good and clear indication of their subject, very passionate about their subject, but they fail to kind of write out the story, and they don't take us through the actual story that they're going to tell. So that's something to be thinking about. Again, giving us a sense of that story. We work in docs. We don't expect you to know your beginning, middle, and end always, but giving a sense of how that story might play out, how you envision that is really, really helpful. If we could head over to the next slide. So, put this slide together really, I guess, to kind of, yeah, as I mentioned before, maybe give you a bit of an indication of some recent films that we funded, and also the distribution of some films that have been recently completed. So in production currently in our latest round, we have Finding You, um, which is looking at a group of Belfast's female ex-prisoners as they craft an intimate kind of stage production, which serves as an unfiltered platform to their past experience. The film leans more experimental, I would say, in its form. The Labyrinth is an animated doc that follows a character as she's left to rebuild her life within the labyrinth of the UK's hostile immigration system. And then Stepney Western is a a Geordie doc western genre mix made with young horse riders from inner city Newcastle. Um, so I just picked those out to give you a kind of snapshot of the different types of films that we fund across the slate. And then those that are in distribution, I won't spend a huge amount of time on this. But again, to give you an idea, so the Medallion, that team actually teamed up with Sudo Connections, who are an international sales agent that specialise in Pan-African films. That connection and that partnership with Sudo was really paramount in the film kind of screening across the globe. That film is screened in almost every continent now globally. Um, and the film won at Clermont-Ferrand and was nominated as well for an IDA award and a Cinema Eye Honours. And I say that again to talk about and speak to the kind of international scope of that project and the distribution. Um, they also got an acquisition from the New Yorker, which so it's recently been released on that. And here in the UK, they've teamed up with Tape Collective. So it's now part of their library and is available to book for screenings. Frontier Town um, had again is a film that's more UK centered, and it played at a smaller amount of festivals, but was very well received. Um, it was picked up by Waterbear, which, for those of you that might know, is a kind of climate focused platform. So it's now available to watch online through that platform. and the film there had some really beautiful cinematography in, and due to it being based in Wales, was nominated at BAFTA Cymru and also won the Best Photography Factual Award there. And then Ted and Noel had a different journey again. So that is a queer film, and it won the Iris Prize, the audience award there. As part of that, it was broadcast on Channel 4, and remained on all four exclusively for a year. It recently won the Best Short for the Grierson Award, and due to that, had a kind of extended run on all four. Um, the team have worked really hard on the campaign around that film. And so the film is going to be used by LGBTQ plus dementia advocacy group in training, alongside some other queer organisations that are interested in using it for kind of training purposes. They also have recently secured an acquisition by Condé Nast, queer publication Them, so that will be released online in the US. So again, the team there kind of broke down different regions internationally and worked with different partners on finding distribution platforms and routes for that film. So that kind of gives you a very brief overview of the different, I guess, strategies that the film and filmmakers have employed in order to get the film seen beyond film festivals. We can head over to the next and final slide, and then I'll open it up to questions. This is just to very quickly touch upon, alongside our funding, we also run a talent support program, and that includes many things, including being present at talks and panels such as this. We have regular open access one-to-ones online, so you can book those through our website. We try to have them weekly, and gives an opportunity, kind of 15-minute one-to-one, to discuss a project, an application that you might be prepping. It's worth saying that it's difficult for us to have those conversations when an application is in, so it's better to have that before applying. We also run regional roundtables, which we will be doing more of over the next month or so, as Made of Truth focused, which again is an opportunity to engage with myself and other members of the team. We are trying to do more directing and producing networking, and we've recently run a matchmaker session where we are kind of trying to match, on an online session, directors and producers together. We know that it's difficult to kind of often find those collaborations. And of course, we're at industry events often, doing talks and roundtables. We also run international delegations. They're usually feature film focused, where we might take a group of producers to CPH Docs, or a group of immersive filmmakers to IDFA, for example. And we have a number of talent development labs. One is open at the moment, which is called Rise. It is for producers working on their first feature film, and that's a kind of 6-month program, which is bespoke to that individual. So that gives you an indication of kind of the additional work and support that we can provide around funding. I think the final slide, if I remember correctly, has yes, our website, also an email address there, and our socials, which are the best way really to keep up with what we're up to. On our website, you can also sign up to our newsletter. So we send out a monthly newsletter, which includes not only kind of BFI news, but also from across the global team at Doc Society, and other opportunities for doc filmmakers across the industry. So that's quite a helpful source of information.